Okay, now to finish up where I left off. Last video I was explaining and gave you kind of the preview of what this one was. Chris over at Powered Play Gaming had asked me to design some stadium towers for a table he's working on. He wanted something that was kind of like you'd see it like a baseball stadium or football stadium for lighting. So he sent me a couple of pictures, and it kind of sat. I started working on some other stuff, didn't get a chance to really look at it. Well, a couple of days ago I dove in really heavy on it and came up with this. It does light up in that it uses one of their lighting kits, so you can turn it off and on. And it tilts up and down, and it's a fairly tall kit. I'm going to turn off these lights and turn back on the actual camera lights, which I know is probably going to wash it out and it's going to blast away for a second, but that's okay, it'll be back. Just to give you an idea about how tall this thing is. Because when I said this was a tall kit, I was not kidding. This is an 18-inch ruler that I just stuck next to it, and it's coming in at 14 inches to the top of the light stand. So it's not your teeny tiny kit of terrain. This is something big. It definitely is going to make a statement when you put it on the table. But there are a few issues with this one, oddly enough, as this was the first one I did. First thing I ran into was, how do I hide the wiring and the batteries and that kind of stuff? So for this one I just set the battery up on top, and I'll try and zoom in a little so you guys can see that a little bit better. There we go. So I just set the battery on top. The switch kind of hangs out through it. I probably could have recessed the switch flat up against it. The problem was, though, getting everything stuffed in there and getting the wire stuffed in, I had to make it so that this light piece could be removed. Other issues I ran into is it's a little narrow, at least front to back, so it's not really as stable, and this platform felt thin. I added in these little tilt down. I added in these 4 steps so that you could actually get so you could set figs on it, which is kind of nice. Added a little bit more detail. But again, this was one of those, it was a prototype, turned out really good, but I knew I could do better. So, we will get this one out of here, and I will find a spot to place it. I need more table space to come back to, and I'm actually going to be able to turn this off finally. Yay! Alright, there we go. A little quieter. To this. This is the final version of this. So that's the light head, and we're going to start at the light head and we're going to work our way down. The light head on this one, it's a little bit bigger, and then I made it a little bit beefier so that it'll look like something that would actually hold the lights. I added this extra railing around so that it made the platform that it's set on seem a little bit larger. There are 2 rings on the lights as before. So the lights have the 2 different rings. I actually, to hide the wiring and stuff, I made the interior of this, and I'm going to lift this up and bring this closer. I made the interior open so that it was easier when you go to wire in all your lights and stuff to hide the electronics. It's just held in with a couple of pins right now. But if you were going to do one permanently, I'd recommend using screws. Obviously, using nuts and bolts. But this one being the prototype, or actually close to the final version, I still need to be able to pull it apart and take extra measurements and that kind of thing. On the bottom, there's a little receiving triangle that allows it to sit into the top of it. And I even added little details. You see this little ring here? What that is, there are 2 1/4-inch holes in there, which allow the electronics for the battery and everything else to go down to the bottom of it, and they'd have a nice place to come through. I actually sized them for some plastic drinking straws, some of the long ones, so that you could run your wires down the drinking straws and paint them up, and they'd look like pipes going up to the top of the light. They're centered in the frame, so it would give you something a little bit different, a little more detail. I did the same thing, and actually let me pull this apart. Pull that nail out, and doing this stuff one-handed is so much fun. Pull it out of the camera so I can get a good grip on it. Here we go. So pull both of those out. There we go. And then I can get this piece out. But you can see that for it, all you have to do is run your wiring on the inside. I actually pre-drilled them for just under the LED size. I believe I went with a 0.21 inch hole, and most LEDs are 0.22, so they're a little bit bigger. That way you can ream them out as needed for your LEDs to get them to sit where you want. If you are going to do the lighting on it, leave this piece off, this piece on the bottom off, until you get the electronics inside of it. Makes things a lot easier. But anyway, the top piece I did the same kind of thing. So I actually textured. I carried through that same little gusset plate so that when it comes up to the top and the wires come out of it, it looks finished. It doesn't look like you just have wires hanging there. So now let's see if we can bring this down a little. Okay, the rest of it, the tower. So the tower still keeps the same triangular shape, but I did something a little bit more with the platforms in that now you have actual ladders between them, just to add a little bit more detail and make it look like something that a figure would be able to climb up. I know that there are no openings. Normally you'd have an opening here for the guy to climb up through, and then the same on each of the others. Didn't do them that way because I wanted enough space that when you put a mini up there, you don't worry about them falling through. So you've got plenty of room in there. And those follow all the way up. There's even an extra ladder section that would go at the top, that when you put that one on, it actually lines up with the top piece so that they can climb all the way up over onto the very top of it. It's kind of neat. Alright, we'll pull this one off of here as well. So it's another piece, same as the other. It doesn't have to be permanently attached. And really what I'd recommend doing if you were going to build one of these, or when you do build one of these, and I may even include it in it, I may incorporate a hole in this piece and in this piece so you can magnetize it so that the pieces just lock together and you don't have to permanently glue it. The last part though is the base. And this camera, there we go, is the base. So in the case of the base, carries over that same ring. So it's got the same ring that those pipes will go through. I actually went ahead and preset a cutout for a switch. The Powered Play gaming kits come with a switch. This would allow you to use that switch into it. And really to hide it, once you have it painted, I'm probably going to include a little piece of wood that looks like a grating or something that fits over the switch as you slide it one way to turn it on, slide it the other way to turn it off. The base is fully hollow underneath, and I made sure that it's deep enough to fit a 9-volt battery. So that if you wanted to, you can, when you put the battery in it, the battery will actually fit underneath it, and you don't worry about raising it up. Height-wise, and I'm going to bring the camera down again. So here goes, way down on camera, and we got to bring the camera way down. The height on this is just tall enough for figures to be able to see over it without being overly tall. So kneeling figures like this one can still shoot over it and you still get a cover save, and it gives you that kind of that concrete footing effect that you get if you look at like most of the lighting things. So it gives you something, again, a little more interest, a little more detail. But that's kind of the idea behind this whole kit, is to give you something that's really going to stand out on the table, look realistic, give you some options. Instead of me going with the normal, like X pattern, I decided to go with this triangle shape, just to give you some more negative space in there. Everything about this was designed to give you options. Chris got a few of these I know coming out your way, so hopefully he'll have his assembled and painted before I get a chance to do mine. I'm probably never going to get a chance to paint one of these. But really cool model kit. You have any questions or anything? I'll go ahead and back up a little so you can see all the bits and pieces of this. So there are all the bits and pieces on the table. The top of the tower, the base, the tower itself, and then the light head. Anyway, that's really it. If you got any questions or anything, go ahead and fill them out in the comments. If you need to get in touch with me, you can reach me at burnindesigns.net. And this is the stadium light, thanks to the guys at Powered Play Gaming. Have a good one, everybody.